Advanced negotiation issues in M&A. Hi, my name is Michael Dance. Welcome to Redcliffe's online mergers and acquisitions course. This course, as the name implies, focuses on the tactics and strategies used in negotiating mergers and acquisitions. This is effectively a one-day program, which is generally split over 2 half-day sessions. I do strongly recommend that clients do it that way, although if you are insistent, I am willing to do it on a one-day session, but there's quite a lot of technical material in the program, and my view is that participants, based on long experience, will generally find it much better to do it over 2 half-day sessions. So in light of the human dimension of M&A, M&A is not a binary matter that can be reduced to a formulaic approach. I've been doing M&A probably for 40 years, and in my view, experience is probably the most crucial ingredient to ensure a successful outcome to the M&A process. So the course, really being M&A, falls into 2 parts. The first module, which really falls as probably about the first 30 to 40 minutes, maybe a bit longer, deals with the soft negotiating issues. And I just want to pick up here. You can see that M&A really is organic. It's not a bilateral process. Really what you've got going on is negotiation. The seller's negotiating with a raft of people. If I can get my pen to work, with the lawyers, the accountants, corporate finance guys. The buyer's doing the same. And I guess also, there's the management that figure in here somewhere. So the first bit of this really focuses on that and provides a framework, my sort of 3-step approach or 3-column approach to M&A, to identify what the key issues are. But as I explained in the program, it's the icing on the cake, the rats and mice that really ensure that the M&A proceeds. Now, clearly what you'll be, for those of you who have some experience of M&A will realize, if you're talking about very large auction type transactions, these are very process driven. The process letter's dished out, you go through lines. Your ability to negotiate in those is extremely limited. There are tactics you can use for that, but they are, as I explained, not very often. You can short circuit the process, come in with a hard bid and threaten to pull out of the sale. But so this first bit really is focused on those sort of negotiating tactics that work, dealing with between the buyers and the sellers, and also how to manage the various parties to maximize the benefit, managing the various players, identifying them. That also falls a key issue in that, as well as managing if you're the seller, the management. Do they want to go off and do their own deal? How do you manage that? There are different strategies and tactics that you can use to deal with that. So that's really the sort of soft issues. The bulk of the course, which probably forms, I'd say, over 3/4, deals with what I call the hard issues. So that focuses on things like the equity bridge. When you look at, the equity bridge, this refers to cash-free, debt-free. So you start with your enterprise value at the top over here, if I can get this right. You might have some agreed adjustments. That depends on the nature of the deal. And then you've got your cash and debt. Of course, if you look at the standard way this is negotiated or set out in a sale and purchase agreement, it typically talks about cash-like or debt-like items. Frankly, those are very generic categories, and those really fail to capture the nuances in what is not so much cash, but particularly debt. What are the debt-like items? How do you deal with trapped cash? That kind of things. Deferred income is another big issue. I talk about how you deal with that. But I think probably even more important than that is really the working capital adjustment. So the working capital adjustment down here, how you deal with that, what is normalized working capital, what is run rate working capital, all of that I think is critical to understanding, to make sure whether you're on the buy or sell side that you don't end up losing value. And worse still, if you're the buyer and you fail to acquire the business with sufficient working capital, you can end up actually finding that you have liquidity issues post-closure. For example, if you have a convergence of a rent roll, VAT payments, and maybe, various other, salaries going out, properties, those sort of things. Those can all create major difficulties. So they're two just sort of different aspects. And then I talk about, practical ways to deal with that. Then after that, you've got two different approaches. Do you deal with a lockbox or do you deal with completion accounts? So this is, to some extent, depends on jurisdictional aspects. When I've done work in the US, I generally found that it's very unusual to find lockbox there. I have got some clients that I've obviously trained there, and I've done M&A there. Lockbox is comparatively rare, although I guess it's probably gained some traction over the last couple of years, possibly because of the cross-pollination of global M&A, and also because of the greater incidence these days of the large US law firms. I think as a result of COVID, we have probably seen a switch back slightly in favor of completion accounts, which I think was comparatively unusual. Anyway, the bottom line is that we talk about the differences in terms of how these relate. And obviously, you're starting in a different place. If you're doing completion accounts, you're starting up here, effectively. If you're doing lockbox, you're starting down here. But that obviously poses certain other issues, because your equity bridge doesn't fall out of the equation. You still have to deal with that, and you still have to negotiate with that. So the idea that it's invisible and doesn't really matter, that doesn't really apply. So that really sort of deals with we go into this in some detail, not just the minutiae, but also how to negotiate this, both from buyer and seller perspective. And for those of you who have done M&A, you will realize that this is pretty generic in terms of wherever you are. I did some work for the Shanghai Bar Association last year for senior lawyers. And again, okay, the lockbox is still not, is comparatively rare there. But effectively, these issues do matter, and people pick that up and they understand the nuances between the two. So that's sort of a big focus of the first session, if you like. The second session really focuses on value leakage, the interaction of the warranties and disclosure effectively, and also caps on liability. So in a traditional deal, how would you, your de minimis, your baskets, how do you deal with that? What is a sort of reasonable cap? But of course, today, what we've seen in many jurisdictions certainly is the advent of warranty insurance, which to some extent has supplanted that. So we talk about how that sort of relates to the process, whether it's on buyer policies or sell side policies, where the sort of market is in terms of pricing. Again, a little bit difficult to be prescriptive about that because things are moving around post-COVID. But anyway, that does give one a sense of what's going on. And then the final element is we look at the value gap. So the value gap can be bridged in a number of different ways. Earnouts, contingent value rights, effectively stub equity. These are some of the ways that traditionally, but I think also that vendor notes represent a very underappreciated role. This is something that Bridgepoint developed back in about 2000 and I guess 2003 or 4. I can remember they were starting to use those. And this really, I think, is a great way from both buyer and seller's perspective of effectively closing the value gap. And I will discuss how you do that and how and why it works. And then various other ways that you can think about, how long, when you have an earnout, what about the management contracts? Do you go for service agreements? Do you have consultancy agreements? What's the difference between the two? How do you structure those? How do you relate them to the earnouts if you have an earnout? And obviously, if you are looking at earnouts, I've done about 30, I guess. It really deals with the key issues you need to focus on in earnouts. And underlying the whole program, what I'm talking about is really how to avoid the pitfalls that happen in M&A. And I know about that because I've made many of them myself. So I speak from long and sometimes, I'm afraid to say, bitter experience. So that's really what we're trying to capture in this program. And as I say, it's over 2 days. There are a number of case studies. In terms of interactivity, people always say, how interactive is the course? And I'm going to be very blunt with you. You can make it as interactive as you like from my side. It actually depends very much on the participants. I try to engage them. I can put in quizzes. I have case studies. It does really depend on the parties involved. And so, for example, if you have a very sort of mixed audience in terms of ability with senior and junior people, what you tend to find is the juniors don't want to ask questions in front of the seniors, And the senior guys think they ought to know all this stuff, and so they don't want to ask the questions either. And that's just something that really, I think, I say that to, I'm very honest with clients. Everyone says, oh, the course is fantastically interactive. I've been doing this for a long, long time. It does really depend on you. But I'm very happy to answer questions afterwards. Sometimes courses have gone over by 30, 40 minutes longer if I have to deal with matters afterwards. And I try and make it as interactive as possible and engage people as much as possible. But anyway, if you want to know something about M&A and, you want some good war stories about, what went right and more particularly what went wrong, I think that's where we learn more about it. Then I think, you will find this course, which has been run probably more times than I care to mention, but I still enjoy running it. That's why I still do it. So I welcome people to come on the course and hope you do. And I look forward to welcoming you on this program in due course. If you have any questions and queries on it, obviously you can speak to our staff. If you have any technical questions or queries, you want to make the course bespoke internally, then obviously I deal with the internal. I can sit down and tailor the course to your own requirements. That's fine. So that's pretty much it. And thank you for listening. And I look forward to seeing all of you on the course. Thank you very much.